FS Securities. We are an education and information firm on the Gold Coast in Queensland, Australia. And every morning I go through what happened in financial markets around the world and try to forecast what we may see these coming days or weeks. I'll show you how investors and traders can make money on our stock market and that overseas. I'll show you what is hot and what is not, what you should hold and what you should fold. And enjoy the presentation. And by the way, if you have any feedback, we would love to hear from you. And there is also an opportunity for you to share this presentation with people that you think may benefit. Well, overnight and from around the globe, we can see that the Dow again got up to nearly 27,000, which is the first time that we have seen for a long time, and 228 points higher, that is 0.9%, adding on to the increases the previous two trading days. The S&P 500 was up nearly 1% to 3,226, still above the last 3 days. Nasdaq Technology Index was also up 0.6%, not as much as the other two indices. In Europe, the Stoxx 50 index, which comprises most major European markets, had a good day, 1.7% up. In London, the FTSE 100 index 1.8%, the DAX 1.8% higher. That is actually a pretty good presentation. When you look at the previous 2 days combined, we are still slightly up for the last 3 trading days. The Nikkei was up 1.6%, and in China the Shanghai index was down 1.2% on top of nearly 1% drop the day before. Our market yesterday, we had a beautiful day, 111 points, let's call that 112 points, 1.9%, and rose above the 6,000 for a number of days, the first time for a number of days. And the futures this morning showing that the market most likely will open 22 points higher at 0.4%, adding on to the 0.5% rise yesterday, the day before, I mean. Gold slightly, almost steady, no change. Silver slightly up from 1964 to 1981. By the way, that is the change from this morning to the previous night, but we compare all the closing prices on every morning, so that's comparing apples for apples. Copper 289, below yesterday price, actually the lowest in 3 days. Brent oil pre-high ups, $43.64, and West Texas crude oil $41.01 US per barrel. Soybeans had a good night last night, 0.7%, at $5.75 US per bushel. The Australian dollar above 70 for the first time. Don't worry about that negative. We compared the 2 mornings. Was up nearly 0.3%. That's pretty good. And it will give you 61.4 euro cents, 54.7 British pence, and 106 New Zealand. And iron ore still very strong at 112 or $114.50 US per ton. Bitcoin was slightly down, 9,100, and that converts to approximately 13,100 something Australian dollars, down about $35 overnight. Looking at the charts, that's where we pick our indicators. We have 5 out of 8 indicators on the monthly, weekly, and daily. Monthly and weekly, that is actually for the investor. Weekly and daily for the traders, and daily and hourly for the very aggressive trader. And that's how we pick up 5 out of 8 indicators on 2 different time frames. Looking at the Dow, you can see that yesterday had a beautiful day. Sorry, that's the weekly. But still, that the highest this week so far is still below the highest levels we've seen several weeks ago. We shot up very high and very fast one week, and then the following week we dropped very, very fast. Now the question is, we might test the previous highs of 29,000 would be about 28, let's say call that nearly 27,000 approximately. We will see that if it happens this week or maybe next week. And on the daily you can see that the chart, the candle shot up to 27,000 but came back very quickly. So that is actually more than 27,000 obviously. It could be 27,000 something. All right, now what we have here is the indicators. The stochastic is very bullish. The parabolic stop and reverse, these red dots below the candles, that's bullish. The 19-day moving average, that's the orange, the thin orange dotted line, is above the black dotted line, which represents the 21-day moving average, that's bullish. And the candles all above the 200-day moving average, that is extremely bullish. So I would put my money on betting that we're going to see the 29,000 that we've seen many months ago before the big drop, tested again before the election. So Mr. Trump can go back and say, look guys, look what happens to the Dow, the American market, the stock market is telling you that the economy is around the corner, and you can't really challenge that. All right, now in terms of our market, we're still hovering between the 61.8 retracement, that's the Fibonacci retracement from the highest to the lowest, up 61.8%, tested it once. It is very likely it will test it again. I don't know, not in a straight line, but today we might see a slight improvement in the market. As I mentioned, the futures are showing 22 points higher. And look at yesterday, the green candle is one of the longest, the tallest candle for a number of days. Well, there is one very huge candle here where the market went up by nearly 200%. 200 points, 2%. Okay, so we are likely to hit that upper band, not as severe or as ambitious as the Dow. But have a look, the Dow actually reached 27,000 or slightly above and then declined. And it's actually a red candle because it opened higher, continued to go higher, went all the way down and finished somewhere above the 50% range of that candle. So it's actually, it could more or less say overall we are bullish, but be cautious, we might see few volatility in the market. Okay, this is the mechanical system that we have designed. From the charts we pick up signals. As I said, 5 out of 8 on the monthly, and has to be confirmed by 5 out of 8 in the weekly. And the same thing, 5 out of 8 in the weekly, confirmed by 5 out of 8 in the daily. Well, it can be bullish or bearish, and if it's not either bullish or bearish, obviously we are neutral. So the Dow, we were actually slightly bearish for the very aggressive, and by the way, that's the guy who trades in and out of the day, within the day. Today we are neutral, so we're sitting on the sideline, but the Nasdaq regained a bit of strength, and we are bullish across all type of investors and traders. The S&P 500, like the Dow, up, down, up, down, up, down. There is no trend. If there is no trend, the indicators are usually very, very uncertain. Gold, slightly less bullish than the week before. And look what happened here. We started the week very strongly bullish. That's on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday morning. And then we've gone neutral for the conservative trader. Silver, we are strongly bullish according to the indicators. Crude oil, even though we had a good day overnight, again, the indicators have not been fast enough to pick up that daily change. not even for the very aggressive trader. Okay, if you're trading wheat, we are bullish, and the Australian dollar more bullish than it was yesterday and the day before. Euro against the US, very strong. So if you want to trade Euro versus the US, and we've been bullish for a long time, more than 3 days, that's a long time for foreign exchange trades. Now looking at our market, this is actually our sectors. We've gone from neutral and few bullish here to a lot more blue here for the aggressive trader and the very aggressive trader. So if we pick those sectors and try to see what we can do in terms of the stocks, well, there is nothing better than materials and consumer staples. The Woolworths, the Aldi, the Wesfarmers, and so on. Coles, I should say Coles. Telstra, the telecommunication, may be bullish for aggressive and very aggressive trader. And energy is bearish for the aggressive and the very aggressive traders. That's for the Australian market. Now looking at our stocks, again, obviously BHP, Rio, FMG, that's Fortescue, very strongly. And look, Woolworths and Wesfarmers, strongly bullish. What else we've got here? CBA amongst the banks. ANZ neutral. It went up and then down and up and finished almost down. CBA still strong of all the banks. NAB bearish. Okay, ANZ neutral. CBA bullish. NAB neutral. Westpac neutral. So you want to trade the banks, you trade CBA. You want to go neutral, bearish, you go bearish for the NAB. One of each. And you trade the consumer staples and Telstra. Okay, now we like to look at volume. Yesterday, as I mentioned, we had 111 points higher, but look at the volume. The volume is actually the lowest in nearly 14 days. It's telling me that only few institutions have gone into the market. Mums and dads are sitting on the sidelines. It's interesting, every time the market is, exception 3 days ago, we had 31% of all the stocks advancing and 29% declining. Yes, the volume was higher and was higher 2 days before. So obviously when the market is up, generally speaking, and most stocks are up, the volume is higher. This is the first time we see that the volume was down when 44% of all the stocks advanced. That is very strange. It tells me that we are maybe reaching a little peak for the time being. However, for the long term, I wouldn't be surprised that the market will follow the American market with a rise. Okay, yesterday we look and see the companies that have actually performed. Kogan has had 7% rise in the price. James Hardie, nearly 5%. Aristocrat had 2 days of good advances, 2.5% versus 4.6%. Qantas also had a rise, and Qantas the day before was down. So it appeared as a very high volume as well. Oz Mineral, Rio, all of these companies had rises, reasonable rise above 1%. So maybe we want to have a look at those. The volume was also good. Now finally, announcement. Oh dear, we can't see this at all. This is bad. But all I can say, tonight in America, the unemployment claims, they expect 123,000 additional claims to be added. And tomorrow night we will see what the unemployment rate will be. So we will see there may be people going back into business, but there are new claims. So we'll see that in terms of China, there are quite a number of announcements today. Retail sales, unemployment rate, nearly 5.4%. If I can read this, sorry, I've had the quality of this. I've had to add two parts of this. This was very, very long, and I had to cut it into two and stick them together, and it didn't really turn up good. In terms of announcement made and results, so what happened yesterday at 4 p.m. The British market, PPI input was 2.4%. They anticipated 3%. Bad news. CPI, actually it's good that CPI rose slightly. Of course, money was slightly spent higher than before. Now, in terms of the US, we like to focus on the US. Import prices, 1.4%. So went higher. That's good for inflation. Industrial production was good, better than expected. Capacity utilization, better than expected. And crude oil inventories, the inventories went down by 7.5 million barrels, which is actually good for the price of oil. Okay, we scan the market every day to see which stock has actually had additional volume above the moving average. And what I mean here is that, for instance, BHP, over 50 days, the average volume, and we look at the moving average, is 6.8 million transactions. Yesterday, we had 16% higher than the average volume, and the price of BHP went up by 2.5%. Rio even did better. The price went up by 3.7%, and the volume was 36% higher than the moving average. That is also a good sign. And South 32, the price was higher and the volume was slightly above the average. Nothing in the top 50 for the bearish. When we go into the mid cap for the aggressive and the very aggressive traders, Orocobre, this is a lithium company, had an increase of price of 3%, and the volume was slightly above the average, not a great deal. Cenex continues to appear on our radar, 4% higher the price, and the volume from 9.5 million transactions per day. Yesterday we've seen 14.4. We want to have a look at Cenex and see if we can trade it on CFDs. And yesterday I showed you that OpenPay was making some money. However, OpenPay yesterday dropped 11%. Remember, it went by nearly 50% in 2 trading days, 50% up, and it retreated yesterday by 11%. We were still higher than the average. Okay, finally the disclosure. Everything we said here is only for general advice only. Before you take any action, please consult with us or with the professional advisor. And remember, there is risk in the market and you need to understand your risk appetite. Are you aggressively risk taker, or you're very conservative and you don't take any risk? So you need to understand that. If you have any questions, you really need to ask. And by the way, we run classes, education programs to actually teach you how to read the signals, how to know when to get into the market, when to get out. And if you really want to learn, all you have to do is talk to us or write to us or call us. If you write to me is george@fssecurities.com.au, george@fssecurities.com.au. And if you call me from overseas, 6161 is the country code. You don't need the 0. 61-411-259526. And if you're ringing locally, all you have to do is ring or text me 0411 259526. 26. Happy trading, and I hope you make some money.